Humans aren't normal. Terrans, or as the larger community of the galaxy's species call them, humans, are a well-known species within the ranks of the Grand Ascendancy, or GA for short. They run our factories, teach our children, fight alongside us, and aid their friends wherever they need it, no matter how hard. By every metric supported within the scientific study of their species, they met and exceeded our standards for citizenship easily. However, as remarkable as I have described them to be, one must understand that every being of the Ascendancy has met these same standards, if not more so than the humans. What makes them remarkable is their ascension. Before I delve into that, I must explain the nature of ascendancy in our society as a whole to better translate upon the reader the gravity of their worth. The Ascendancy is, at its heart, a collective of life forms that have reached the benchmark stage of exiting their homeworld's gravity and colonizing other planets within their origin system. Upon the completion of their nest building, as it is commonly referred to, the species will enter into the age of voyaging to other systems in search of life and new homes. It is at this time that the ascendancy begins. At first it is a slow process. A species sets on a series of journeys to new stars, and along the way they begin to change. Subtle shifts in their genetic makeup, a slight tilt to their overall beliefs, or maybe even a newfound interest in bodily modification. Something akin to events transpires, and as such the species begins pushing towards their next evolution. Once the initial changes set in, there begins a drastic progression of changes throughout the entire species. Sometimes these changes are violent, other times they are unanimous within the populace. Regardless, the change does not stop until the species reaches their niche. Elaborating further, this niche is generally the primary specialization a species achieves that sets them apart from all others. For example, Gurivarians were once a primarily herbivorous species that practiced the art of mystic gateways. Once they achieved starflight, a sudden epidemic of genetic ailment struck the species as a whole, pushing them to adapt in a rather violent way. The Gurivarians seen today are an exclusively carnivorous species that uses their unspeakable powers to warp entire cities' worth of materials between systems. No other species is capable of the same feats the Gurivarians mastered. Likewise, they cannot do what some other species can. Every species is ascended in a different manner. Sinul monks can phase their bodies through all solid matter. Olgons can adapt to any atmosphere. Lurginals possess the most acidic secretions of any living being, and that is just naming a few. Where this all comes together is the Grand Ascendancy. No species knows who the first to ascend were, but it is unanimously accepted that it is of little importance. Once a species makes contact with the ascendant, they are offered to join regardless of their nature. Yes, some fought their brethren at first, and others were simply hesitant to join, but in the end they were forgiven and allowed to join regardless. Now that the explanation of our society and the process of joining has been covered, it is time to discuss the species this book covers. Humans. As every race does, the humans rose from their world and set sail among the stars. Their home system was colonized, and soon after their neighboring systems probed and settled as well. Eventually they ventured far enough that they began meeting other sentient life that had yet to rise beyond their cradle. They created an alliance with their newfound brethren, the so-called Unified Races Council. As unfortunate as it is, the home system of the humans was quite distant from the nearest member of the GA. In the time it took them to reach this member, they were able to witness firsthand the ascendancy in its more violent form. Their council was a joint effort of 5 races, and through no fault of their own the humans had to watch as the other 4 members underwent their changes. To summarize briefly the sorrows they bore witness to, their first ally, the Jexel, waged a civil war so terrible it reduced their population to a mere 15%. The next was the Yogtilk that underwent a severe neurological shift that left their entire populace devoid of certain emotions. Most horrible was the Tippin, their nanites turning against their Masta RS and fusing to their very cells. Lastly, and most unfortunate, was the Fuja that all perished from acute sensitivity to radioactive particles. By the time that collective had reached the open arms of the GA, most had undergone a full transformation into their new niches. Jexel individuals were now able to perform stable cloning akin to cellular mitosis. Yogtilk were now a completely fearless race, and the Tippin became the only biomechanical race of the GA. As is usual, they were welcomed as newfound siblings. Aside from humanity, that is, when the humans that had arrived on board the council ships were scanned, a startling discovery was made. The humans hadn't ascended, nor had they even begun to change. As preposterous as it was, the oldest member of these new arrivals was the only race that did not meet the criteria for entry. So it was with heavy hearts and deep regrets that we had to turn them away. As the council ship set about on a return voyage, a ship of the GA was sent along with them to perform an in-depth analysis of the humans, as well as to learn more of their allies. Our efforts to better understand the humans, and our apologies for denying them entrance to the GA, were accepted by their people. Then began a decade-long research effort on the planet Earth. To say that the evidence brought forth by this mission would shake the GA to the core would be an understatement. It was found that humanity had yet to ascend as a whole, yet had individuals that had undergone unique changes and ascended in varying ways. Never before had something like this occurred. Following this revelation, more ships were sent to uncover the truth of this outlandish claim. To speak more personally, I was assigned to be the lead biologist and research cartographer of the second ship sent to Earth. Our findings regarding the nature of human ascension were the very reason that the laws preventing their entry were repealed. Allow me to explain. Humanity did not ascend as a whole, but instead ascended through individuals that underwent changes unique to them. Every other species undergoes a uniform change that exempts no individuals. Inversely, Conversely, humans refused to change as a whole and instead changed as individuals, or sometimes not change at all. These changes and their subsequent ascension were all unique to the individual and the environment of their choice. Here are some examples that I personally came to understand through my time on Earth. One individual had developed a secondary system of nerves and muscles throughout their body that granted them greatly improved physical speed and strength, all due to extended training and strain while serving in the interplanetary military. Another individual had grown an exoskeleton due to repeated physical abuse at the hands of their peers. Amazingly, a third individual I encountered has yet to undergo any change, but upon being examined by a telepathic being of the Roitis species, the human in question developed an interesting growth at the base of their central nervous organ that enabled them to communicate telepathically as well. It was by our understanding that any human was capable of ascending in a way that was one of a kind. Some adapted due to environmental influences, others merely needed a single instance of exposure to a foreign entity, and even some rare individuals were born in an ascended state. Sometimes we were able to determine what would cause them to change, other times we were unable to learn anything about the changes someone had already undergone. Speaking candidly, it was simultaneously thrilling and vexing. After reviewing the evidence collected by scores of separate teams, a consensus was reached and a revised evaluation of humanity was compiled. Together with all 4 members of the United Races Council, our ships went back to the galactic ascendancy. It took many months of debate and haggling, law changing and exempting, but eventually humanity was allowed to join. And here we are today. Humanity has become a pivotal part of our society, and they have managed to fit into every society available. Humans that can open gateways much like their Guruvarian peers, humans that can pass through walls akin to the Sinul that raised them, and humans that spew acid second only to their virginal siblings. In this researcher's humble opinion, I do believe that the ascension humans have is like no other. They can be so unbelievably unique, or so similar to that you scarcely believe they are not your own kin. If anything, it seems as though they came to be not to drive us apart, but to help bring us closer together. As a father to 2 little humans myself, I am certain that with them around we can all look forward to a bright future.